And we are live. I welcome anybody and everybody to come and join as we do these live streams. I apologize, we were a bit late today, but we had to take care of a very important family member, aka a lovely doggo. So the doggo had to be taken care of first. And now we're home. And now we can do the stream. And as we've stated, this is going to be our Halloween live stream. We are going to be doing some scary stories from the internet. Every week, we do these live reads, and with them, we usually will do stories that we put together or stories that other people ask and request. But this week, we are literally just going to scour the net and stream what stories we can find, or scary stories. So, I have not read these before, so my reaction is going to be equally just like yours. So let's get on to our scary stories. I'm going to move over here as we do it. And I'm going to pull up the first of our scary stories. We're going to start with a story that's called With Her Diamond Teeth by Per Nuglek. It begins with a girl in the water. My stilted home rises from the dark, moving river. In it, I learned to swim, buoyed by coconuts. For much of my 19 years, its murky depths held no fear. In the water, there's fish, and in the fields, there's rice. The kingdom of Altulhea, none of us are wanting. The abundance of the water crisscrossing our lands yields life. But when I saw the glittering jaws open the waters, closing over my sister's face, the fact of the death's proximity dropped into my lap. I cradled this knowledge, worn with the palms, moved my lips as if in a prayer. She's taken. She's gone. Girls are always taken, it seems. Within the temple's sanctuary, you peer at the murals, painted women stolen by painted men. Each face serene, proprietus. I really don't know what this word is. Safe at home. You sit with a jostling family, the storyteller filling your ears with tales and heroes and brides. You know what the brides look like, of course, sculpted in beauty. Smooth skin and lambent, long hair as the river and luxurious as silk. I've looked at women, wondering if they might be my bride. An impossibility. In any case, I'm ill-suited to marriage. Once I spent an afternoon reflecting upon this, lamentations on the irregularities faced prompted Tapathong to offer sisterly encouragement. You better die and be reborn. Her soft touch was, or her touch was soft. Her voice was tart. My little sister always knew just the thing to say. She was lovely as a crow, sharp-eyed, dark, cackling. But then, my sister was taken. She was unexpectedly quiet. We were in the river with our entourage. When I heard the slap of the flesh on flesh, I looked at Tapahog and admired the bright, leech-thinned blood of her shoulder. The water roared. My sister turned. A crocodile strikes before a person can react. The screams always come too late, choked with blood and saliva, the river water. But this creature gave us long moments of time. We saw the beast rising from the deep. We saw the remarkable size, the gleam of the liquid eyes, the skin and teeth fortified with a multitude of raw diamonds. We saw nothing, for in that moment we knew awe. It gazed at Tapahog. Nithithang Nichitang is still and silent, utterly reptilian. It struck all speed, muscle, her whole limp self held aloft in its jaws, for just a moment before they went down in the water. Once the ripples stifled, the screaming began. There's one scream in particular I recall, startling and bestial, like a wounded water buffalo. Against the panic calls of my name and hers, it was a noise unmoored from language, from reasons. Servants can be such a noisy lot. This is how it is done. When my sister is taken, I am given as a bride. Father, the governor of our town, is a man vigilant on his property. Naturally, he's troubled. The news of a man-eating snatching of his daughter. The creature must be slain. Tapahog's corpse must be returned. He offers a share of his possessions, one daughter, some money, to the man who succeeds. As a girl, now sisterless, but marriageable, you understand how to reimagine my likeness. A face pure of lovely in grief, lustring in each beat of wet lashes, a mouth full of solemn, requiring kisses, begun with assuming sweetness and finishing in salt. I'm not bitter. How could I? When bridehood so becomes me, I should be withered with sorrow, but I'm a lotus in full bloom. Fear and uncertainty courses through the whole town. A man-eater in the water, whose diamond fangs wards him against harm. Unstoppable death lurking in which gives life. My world shrinks in the walls of the house. Mother approves. She's convinced I'd be wed, desperate for order and happiness in a time of despair. After all, a daughter is merely a condition which permits bridehood. My hands want only to drive sharp instruments into fabric and flesh, embroidery and fruit carving. These are feminine arts that satisfies my needs. It's a memory of my sister in each cut and stitch. One night, after she stolen my favorite sugar-plumbed cakes, I sewed her toe and heel to the mattress as she drooled on the pillow. You can apply salves to soften the feet, but there's always a horny layer. It was here, where the needle could not be felt, that I pierced. My hand was sure and precise from experimenting its own skin. Such mayhem when she woke. I savored for days. Her retort was to stick pins into the hems of my Phasian and a sambai, in such a way that I suspected nothing in the morning, but was vexed by noon from the pricking at the knee, hip, and breast. Each time we played such games, Mother sighed, "Oh, daughters, who'd ever want you?" and fetch a switch-wielding maid. She didn't reason with us, thinking the combination of pain and time would naturally remove unsightly behaviors. Like milk teeth shed, our games simply got quieter and more cunning. I always moved with expectation of hurt. Barbs waiting inside for my sister, primed and ready to pierce at the moment. She's gone. She's taken. But I resist learning gentleness in her absence, for I don't know if I'm capable of such a life. As a laborer, my room It's filled with dozens of sculptured fruits, sapodilla and rose apples, split into many petaled flowers. Under my bird beak knife, mother's pleased, saying the industry, despite the grief, is becoming of a girl. Appropriate of her pragmatism, but there is still no sorrow in me. Rather, the shock of death ebbs away to a curious new awareness which pulls and nudges at a world previously unknown to my senses. Scaled bodies push against backs of my knee, and laughter bubbles out of nowhere. Occasionally, the light floral accents of lotus drift by. My response to carve a series of crocodiles from papayas, guavas, and gourds, each one more resplendently scaled than the last. Similarly, I move to embroider the tales of two lovers on the length of cloth, intended to be a curtain without my knowing, or knowing why. I see through a mosquito net, flimsy and soft. The rhythms of the day cease to have meaning. What it matters is silk embellishing fabric. How quickly I must work before fruit softens and rots, its ornament to turn, beaded with flies and velveted with mold. My body is sweet, soured, my hands sticky with juice and blood. The air in my room is tight and sultry, filling the nostrils with cloying sweetness. Sharp metal, dirty scalp. Work begins to relieve the cool water and lily pads, brushing against limbs. Save for ordering more fruit, cloth, silk, thread, I refuse the ministrations of servants and brook no distractions. Oh, Tapakel, mother stands at the doorway. I don't know what hour or day it is, Tapakel, that's enough. Braced against one of our servants, I kicked the strain. What they didn't tell you in his stories was how strong a woman gets from a lifetime of work. I have news, daughter, she smiles tentatively at first, with the expansive warmth as if she brings hope. Tapathog is safe. You both be wedded to the hero, Krathog. Once you've made your descent, we'll celebrate. That screams again. Incredible noise. It was there when my sister was taken, and it's here when she's returned. Yes, it's me who screamed that day. Only me. Mother is kind. Only when I've emptied myself of all noise, once I finally slack and quiet, she has me lowered to the tub and washed. Two women towel me fore and aft until my breath catches before bundling me into a room fenced with screens. I'm presented before a table and mirror, succulent at the altar. My skin is perfumed in jasmine, with burnish of turmeric until I am colored of wealth, matching the gold patterned silk, wrapping my hips and chest. Before me, a woman pushes past my lips, knocking against my gum as she polishes each tooth to gleam black to a gleaming black. Behind me, a comb rips into my snarled hair. Pain grounds me. It keeps my senses from returning to the water. Arnett, my gagging and whimpering. Mother tells me about our husband-to-be, Krathog. He's a man who knows how to court victory through protection and patronage. Krathog went on his spell work teacher, acquiring sacred arms and favorable prophecies before plundering into the river, as a hero should. Townspeople saw the water running incarnated, smelled and reeked of blood and magic. They knew where to gather and how to cheer when Krathog came heaving into the bank, slumped and coughing, clutching his sacred spear. Trapathog stayed behind, calmly treading the water. The hero leaned heavily against his spear and spoke a beautiful invitation, addressing Trapathog as if she were a queen. It was only when he stumbled that she moved towards him, mild and interested. Crethog took her cold fingers and led her from the water. Mother finishes her story with a smile, admiring the composure of the hero and the bride. Fingers withdraw abruptly from the mouth and her hair. Mother wipes a tear and smudges from cheeks with delicacy. In the same manner, she opens a crock of powder and works my face until the complexion is like moonlight. I think it's a mask, and the bracelets fastened to my arms and are manacles. The gold necklace my mother holds to my neck, a garret. Sweet, or panic sweets, or panic swells to blood flat leech. In the mirror is the girl condemned. Mother hooks the chain at my back of my neck, and I'm returned to myself, a daughter, beloved, whose mother is so attentive, so kind, who wants to be the best for her children. You're happy to wed him, I hope. We are civilized people. I can still negotiate, but I see no need. Marriage is distant to me. My anticipations is yoked solely to the idea of a new game between sisters. But if I must have a groom, Crethog's manners are beautiful, and that is enough. When I finally nod, the three women around me relax. Mother beams. Your sister will return presently. She and Crethod will be feasted, and you, of course. Her voice comes dimly, and I am there, a mossy pool clarifying the jasmine and turmeric clogging my throat. A thumb pressing from the collarbone to breast, soothing away the bodily depression required of my beauty. Can you draw a sign with your YouTube channel name on it? I can. Would you like that aquamarine dragon? Because I could do that. I'll add it to my list of things. In fact, I won't even make it a Dining and Doodles thing. I'll make it a thing that I can do in the future. Probably of this week. We'll get to that. I actually have been planning to start doing some different thumbnails that are going to be regularly used for especially the gaming streams. Okay, I'll add it. I'll put it on my list to do this week. Let's see here. Where were we? Here it is. Okay. Not so exquisite this time. Dismay plucks at the edge of sensation, but let it calm what may. Mother thinks I'm caught in a nuptial daydreams. This too, I'll allow. I don't know if I'm going to take a break here from this. Just this brief one. I don't know if this is a story based off of a actual country. It's sounding a little mixture of cultures from where this scary story occurs. So I don't know if this is a real story or if somebody just sort of made up a fictional place. So I apologize if this is a real place, if I'm screwing up the names. But it does sound very Asian-esque, which is appropriate for a crocodile. There are many stories in which you may learn that inhumanity doesn't save you from bridehood, and making of a woman isn't necessarily the shape of her flesh, but her place in the tale. You might have heard of Supernhanamacha. The Ungike was so charmed by Humanan. She is not only betrayed by her father, but mated with the monkey god in the surrounding sea, the fruit of the union of the Marachuno. Like his father, but for his mother's tale, he must have gone out smooth and placid in one end, brown and wrinkled in the other, natural to no geek. I imagine the details of their coupling bothered me. Who can say what's inside a god or mermaid? The interior of common creatures for you and me, the animals we keep safe, is horrifying enough. When I was 5, I crept into the kitchen and saw a hen cleaved in half. I couldn't look away from the treasures of its innards, lightly veined, coral bright cluster hanging obscenely from its scaffolding of its ribs. A hen cracked open naturally yields its eggs to be, each glistened from yolk, might be enough to become anything it wished. It's for it's better for certain secrets to remain unlaid, I think. But knowledge ripens and drops its own accord, particularly if you're a daughter. When I accept my betrothal, I understand how Sapanacha accepted a monkey god for her moment of weighing, of consideration, of how Humanan had manners beautiful enough to be persuaded a mermaid bride. That evening we gathered at the circle of the feast, the return of my sister and the making of a hero. If the story is a hero, you know what he's like: handsome, strong, smart enough to understand the order of things. My eyes pass over Crathog. Not a single feature captures my attention. He's simply a boy my age, grave and polite. There's little conversation between us, no courtship to speak of. It's father's who takes up his time, pampering his soon to be with, or son to be, with questions, holding forth on family and property. He must be pleased with Crethog. He hasn't demanded Cowlethan's corpse as proof and a trophy. Apparently, the content of the whole daughter's father would have liked to find crocodile skin. Beside me, Tepathong had eaten nothing. Her lips twitched like beetle wings, but do not give forth her usual noises, her bright words, and Cashathang laughs. I watch her face, every limited feature to me as a sister and bride's. You may say our fine features are cast upon the same mold, that in bridehood we're interchangeable with each other and every single woman in any given story. It certainly seems that way to fathers, suitors, and storytellers. I do not wish her gone again, exactly. In her quieted state, she's much improved, but I cannot be more concerned than that. Since her return, my thoughts have been untouched by the exquisite caress of water. The night of my dreams, viscid, illish, ova from fill my mouth until I gag and bring forth a nook, crocodiles and monitors, Talana, Tuke and Junkok. I wake retching, fingers massaging my mouth. My breathing calms, and I realize as Tepathog is watching me, blank-faced. Seems hour pass before she pinches her eyes shut, even longer until I sleep again. The ending you require of a story is marriage and happiness in quick succession. The ending brides need knowledge and auspicious date on how to shallow the days between engagement, dowry, and wedding. Tepathog is determined to reach a different conclusion. She's flattened an image of her voice comes far off, and her outline skews uncertain. My sister is a shadow puppet. We failed to find the light in which she will be legible. And days and nights before the final ceremony, she moans two names: Wilmala and Luminella, strangers to us. Known to my sister as faces limed in lovely necks that curve, fingers strong and elegant. My sister was never one for a lyrical. Now she alternates and rhymes so pretty pairing flower and trees with birds, describing the lovers' borrow beautiful with prosperity but implausible according to the laws of nature. This story isn't my parents' wish to know. This is a hard story. We picked a hard one to start out with. Uh, Her Kawanin has been frightened, Mother says. Common in soldiers returning from war, those who haven't not taken well to changeability of life, their very souls take flight. The Kawanin doctor is called to the house. A room is chosen, the boundaries marked with taunt white cotton, corner to corner. In the center stand Balasiri large and small banana leaves, folded with into spines with eggs, speared at a pinnacle, the tallest rising over the trays and dainties and sweet meats made to be seen but not eaten. Musicians open the ceremony, falling silent as my sister takes her place among the offerings. Doctors move towards her, and evocations begin. Tapathong is ointed with a ring-clad finger, her kawan feasted with a spoonful of air, and bound to a thin white cotton tied at her wrists. A girl ringed by candlelight and family join in the ritual to unfold and clarify the close gap between soul, body, daughter, and parent. Mother's wrinkled brow, father's tensed neck, and these I read in their love for my sister and weighing the understanding pulls at my gut. In my weakness, questions flicker at the back of my mind. If she won't recover, what will become of us? But the oldest sibling should be strong, someone who bends without breaking, who keeps her bitter root unseen. I know myself, her, us. She will yield. I've always been the quiet one, biding my time. Afterwards, Tepathong's silence has taken on a different quality, as if she's gathering herself. I chose my moment. That night, I pinch her awake. That's enough, Tapathong. She smiles and turns towards me, in a languorous recline, her eyes fix me, alive, again with bird-like cunning. Tell me what happened. I find myself sliding the cotton off her wrist, dividing the white threads so that we wear an equal number. But you know already, she chuckles at my knit burrow, points at the embroidery of the two lovers at the corner of the room. Look at the curtain you made. I crawl out from the mosquito net. The taper flickers as I bring it to cloth. My handiwork gleams. Fine detail, but designs aren't how I remember them. The lovers aren't couples, but threesomes. Two crocodiles encircling girls, whose faces are both mine and my sister's. I haven't touched any of it since my felonious labors. Something breaks at me, releasing a knowledge which oozes between my fingers. Tampathog makes herself comfortable beside me at the beginnings. I woke in a cave with a gold walls lit by glass orb that gave me the light of day. Two women stepped into its glow, and I knew at once what I wanted. There now, you have no right to be shocked. I've seen the way you look at the women who aren't our kin. She elbows me gently. Wilmama and Lumayor Luna are Chihuahuan's wives. He's greedy for a third wife. But what happened to the crocodile? Her faces cease. Why, they are all crocodiles, dear sister. The orb's light made them human, slowing their age and robbing them of hunger. They could have lived a long and pure life, for Chihuahuan's delight in human flesh. He was hunting all of us on the river that day, you know. A flicker in her eyes conveyed the horrors that could have been, but he took only me. Tapathog's voice trails away. Her face brims with delight, chin wobbling in manner which should endure, but simply irritates. She's hiding something, a morsel whose sweet scents she'll flaunt before me, but enjoy alone. So what else happened? Something must have made you sick with fear, or were you simply sulking? You've always liked making mother and father worry. You, she sees. With hot anger, my pulse thunders in anticipation at her retort. But after that moment, her breathing calms. Her features pull into a quiet smirk, and my sister continues as if I said nothing. Do you remember, she muses, when I sewed your toe and heel to that sleeping mat? But that was me. That was me. The words leave my mouth again and again, until I no longer sound like myself, but a mimicry of a mahan bird. Girls' echoes piping from my beak. Tapahong laughs at a while, puts a satchel out from her wardrobe. Why, eldest sister, you're confused. No, you're the hot-headed one, bristling with sharp retorts. I'm the one who waits until dark to get what she wants. I make my nails bite into the meat of my palms, easing me back into human speech. That's not true. I know who I am. How could you say that? I watched her pack and organize as questions pour out of me. Why won't you tell me what happened? Where are you going? Back to Wilma and Lumela. I won't be given as a minor wife. I'll go into the water and be theirs. They taught me a little spell work. Our parents will recall only one daughter come morning, and the servants will be in deepest slumbers. You were always intended to be the principal wife. You can have the riches, the hero, the honor. Duty and property hadn't entered my mind. I had been thinking of marriage in familiar terms, that she and I would turn from daughter to wife, a new game between sisters, the nuptials intended for both of us at once. Her bridal house was not far from mine. To be taken alone by a strange man was an idea I hadn't fully contemplated. The prospect of connection so new and naked. The thought of being unable to point to an older mark or scar and say, with a weight of memory, you did this, was unbearable. You can't leave me like this. I reach for the first time in years, my hand on hers, gentle, seeking comfort. Her gaze flicks downward as if an unusual insect landed on her skin. Dear sister, we've never liked each other. It's not that simple. My breath comes in blades. How do I tell her about the feeling of the water? How do I find the right words to make her yield when she is so eager to leave me alone? Both become comely brides, only your bridal house is wood and mine is stone. An ending familiar with and complete. But why can't it be me who goes into the water? It was you driving me to madness with this touch. You and your two brides flaunting your happiness. Incrudently blooms in my sister's face, eyebrows unfurling, lips parting. Her mouth quirks, a laugh comes strangely through her lips. A moth winging, stutters sharp. This is how I wanted to say goodbye, elder sister. Might we not be cordial for once? Her palms turns upwards, pressing against mine, drawing me close. She smiles like my sister should. New seat on a clean skin, bruised pandarin and split palmetto. She tastes as a girl ought, iron-rich and supple. I bite her as I wish a crocodile had done. Tepthon grasps as I break her skin. Piercing the meat of her shoulder, she drops her satchel. We tussle in our full weight. The strike of my thigh fells me, biting me in turn, and the tangle and pain in limbs and salt as we lose ourselves. She's above me. I push her beneath, but I'm the one on the floor. My blood wet runs wets her nails. Her blood roars in my veins. She and I roll over us. We roll under me. Over, under. For us to gets away. For one of us to gets away. I, whichever that may be, flee the house, tripping over servants on the stone deed, sleep, running into the deep in the hot of the night. When I come towards the blackened length of a river, I find a diamond-scaled crocodile waiting on the bank, and I give myself, only myself. We're almost done. Almost done. Okay. I break through the shell of slumber, the damp of as a hatchling, and find myself in a golden cave lit by a glass orb, which gives the light of day. I push the sweet stuck hair from my forehead. Despite my wounds, I've never felt so new, fresh and lively. Turning about on my knees, I pat the reed mat, the packed earth reaching up from to feel the impregnable wall, smooth and bright as if gilded by a master hand. Two women watch me. This cave, their faces known to me, but not familiar. I flex my fingertips to see blood dried into the quick. The taste of rust, salt, revived at the push of the split, smooth tongue. I have little time to savor it. The women bound forward almost as one, putting their faces close to mine, so near I can see the liquid of their eyes leap into the scattered colors, dark opals, split with black. Their names come to me, Willima and Lumela, the crocodile wives of Cthulhu. Neither introduces theirself. Each wife is absolutely quiet. It must be their native form which gives them such stillness. Both women reach me, hands open, mouths parted. Their touch is the caress of water. Their scent the light fragrance of lotuses smeared with dark, sharp, tempered pulp. Revelations press deep into the length of my throat. Or revulsion presses deep in the length of my throat, and desires to pluck the ripples beneath my belly. They are women unmoored from humanity, with no reason and gentleness. Their tender offering is perverse. I yield in delight. A crocodile can rip a water buffalo in half, but their lips are petal soft. They card their fingers through their hair and murmur, welcome, and gladness in my ear. I draw back with a start and ask where their husband is. Life for me has always featured a man on its propriety. Each woman gives his mouth a sigh. Let's not go over that day again, one says. She tucks her hair behind her ear, gestures behind the charming, startling with its human nervousness. Willima is right. The other woman voices and rings a sharp. Lunaman Lowen, I'm always going to get this name wrong, must be so named for her sequin bright eyes. It's done. The boy broke the seal of the diamond fang. We completed the task, each taking what a wife is due. The fangs and scales, this cave, and its contents, our time and affection only ours to give. I twist the cotton at my wrists, letting my eyes wander about the cave. Uncountable little stretches of water are scattered throughout. The nearest to me is a small pool of water, hyacinth. Dimly at the far end of the cave, I glimpse at lapping waters beneath the great fluorescent hundreds of nodding lotuses the size of human heads. A chime startles me. Dozens of clocks tick and flow along the sections of the wall, marking days which can no longer be felt. Willima turns her head. A wing of her hair escapes her ear. Will this suffice, or were you expecting a husband or two? If a groom offered dark eyes and bright lips, would you eat him whole? No, I say. In this I am sure, but uncertainty still creeps, light-footed, many-legged. Hush, Willima. You wish the other one, don't you? Lumalawan waits for my answer, grave and curious. I want to say it's not the simple, but explanations are uncomfortable in the mango hair between teeth. Willima smiles, touches my cheek with a fingertip. Well, you've only to wait if there's the right moment for everything. Each woman compliments my cleverness, my lovely embroidery, how my soft cheek and quick tongue. I may never know which sister I am. It doesn't matter now. Perhaps it never has. So I'm free to be whoever I wish. We mark the time by the wall of the clocks and the lunar calendars, probing astronomy manuals for auspices. Lunamnalan and Willima promised a beautiful wedding, but I am ever troubled as they are increasingly refusing my embrace and invitations to play, preferring to keep themselves in a corner of the cave behind the stream of pool of morning glory, a place forbidden to me. I know gut deep they can't play games with them as I did with my sister. I satisfy my different curiosities instead, but as they busy themselves with their secret, I spend my days looking over every other pool, pushing the automatic blooms or aquatic blooms to reveal clear water. In a parted tangle of arrowheads, I see my sister in a mirror. Her image ripples at my touch, and she starts, her mouth open for a moment before surprise sags into weariness. I can't help but smile. Soon I'll see her again. I turn to the dark reaches of the cave and walk towards the incredible mass of lotuses. The last pool opened to me. The water's cool about my knees. Blush of pink petals tickle my nose. As part of the blooms with a sweep of my arms, I wonder why we've never played here. And the silent water gives forth an answer. I found him, a husband in flesh, a husband in forgotten. He is caught between crocodile and man. No rot or bloat to his corpse, no death reek, only his scent of wet stones and bruised petals. He bears Crathanog's mark around 2 round penetrations of neck and chest, which gleamingly eerily. Shallow wounds pit the surface of this crocodile self, like an empty lotus pod, his diamond fangs and scales torn out, leaving only crusted black, and his face. Willima and Luminola call to me. I turn away, wading towards their voices in body, which doesn't entirely feel like my own, thinking of their strong, elegant, precise fingers. They permit me to cross the stream pool of morning glory. They stand, faces radiant beside the mound of dirt, which gives off a strange heat. We've something to show you. Crouching by the water's edge, the two gently scoop away the dirt with their hands, eyes wide and gleaming, lips shiny and wet. Once they locate what they seek, each woman looks towards me, brightly and expectant. A smile breaks across my face like a river bursting in its banks. I know what happens at my sister's wedding. 9 monks in saffron, bright platters and fruit, rowdy bridal play or party. My sister's face powdered and white, her body polished in turmeric, silk wrapped and jeweled feathered, her groom's face quiet and blank. Together they will take a tiny receptacle of lustral water and pour it into a dish. Willima and Lumele, alive from the river, in full splendor, suited in raw diamonds, jaws open, ready, claws shining, their pleasant warmth somewhere in my center. Like I've swallowed young peppercorn, I hum, I sit at the crocodile's eggs and gaze at the morning glory. The long fronds and pale blooms, the eggs are quiet. I'm told they'll call to one another near the hatching, wise embryos who already know how to choose their moment. A distant pleasant catches my attention. I look towards the cavern's entrance, and reek of blood fills my throat. She is here. She has come. So ends with her diamond teeth. That was a story by Per Nullock. I'm guessing it was a story about basically a crocodile and its town. Let's see. Let's find a shorter one. I think this one's another one, a longer one. We've got a couple other ones here that are kind of shorter, I think. How about a more recent one? This is off of Reddit here. So we're going to read this one. It's called My Dead Girlfriend Keeps Messaging Me on Facebook. I've got screenshots. I don't know what to do. Tonight's kind of a catalyst for this post. I just received another message. It's worse than any of the others. My girlfriend died on the 7th of August, 2012. She was involved in a 3-car collision, driving home from work, when someone ran a red light. She passed away within minutes on the scene. We've been dating for 5 years at that point. She wasn't big on the idea of marriage. It felt archaic, she said. Gave her a weird vibe. But if she had been, I would have married her within 3 months of our relationship. She was vibrant, the kind of girl that would choose dare every time. She was the happiest when camping, but a total technophobe, too. She always smelled like cinnamon. That being said, she wasn't perfect. She always said something along the lines of, if I can't take it first, I don't say good things, then don't say. If I cark it first, don't just say good things about me. I've never liked that. If you don't pay me out, you're doing me a disservice. I've got so many flaws, and that's just part of me. So this is for M. The music she said she liked and the music she actually liked were very different. Her idea of affection was a side hug. She had really long toes, like a chimpanzee. But I know it was tangential. But I don't get the feeling of discussing her without you having the idea of what she was like. Onto the meat. Had been dead for approaching 13 months when she first messaged me. September 4th, 2013. This was when it began. I left Emily's Facebook account active so I could send her an occasional message post on her wall, go through her albums. I felt it was too final and too on Emily to memorialize it. I share access with her mother, Susan, meaning her mother had her login and password. It was spent a total of approximately 3 minutes on the website or computer total. After a little confusion, I assumed it was her. November 16th, 2013. I had received confirmation from Susan that she hadn't logged into M's Facebook since the last week of her death. Em knew a lot of people, so instantly assumed it was one of her tech savvy friends fucking with me in the worst possible ways. I noticed pretty much immediately that whoever it was chatting with me was reconciling my old memories from M and my shared chat history. The wheels of the bus comment was from when we were discussing songs to play on a road trip. Never eventuated. Hello happened to me a million times. Around February 2014, Emily started tagging herself in my photos. I would get notifications of them, but the tag would generally always be removed by the time I got to it. First time I actually caught one, felt like someone had punched me in the gut. She would tag herself in spaces where it was plausible for her to be, or where she would usually hang out. I've got screenshots of the two from April and June. They were always ones that I've caught, so there's little out of the timeline I'm trying to write out. Around this period of time, I stopped being able to sleep. I was too angry to sleep. She would tag herself in random photos every couple weeks. The friends would notice and said something thought was a little fucked up bug. I found out recently that it had been friends who had noticed and didn't say anything. Some of them had been removed me from Facebook and their friends list. At this point, some of you may be wondering why I didn't just kill my Facebook profile. I wish I had. I did for a little while, on days when I couldn't get out there. Though, it's nice having friends available to chat. It's nice visiting M's page when there's a little green circle next to her name. It was already socially reclusive when M was alive. Her death turned me into something pretty close to a hermit, and Facebook and MMOs were my only real social outlets. March 15th, I sent what I assumed was M's hacker a message. March 25th, I received an answer. It wasn't until I was going over the logs a few months later that I noticed she was recycling my own words as well. My responses seemed kind of lackluster here. I was intentionally providing him or her with emotional bait. This is actually devastating to keep them interested in the game. I was working off the assumption that was the kind of person to do this that would be the kind of person that would thrive on the stress of others. I was posting tech forums looking for ways to track this person. Contacting Facebook, I needed to keep them around so I could gather evidence. Before anyone asks, yes, I had changed the password and all the security info countless times. April 16th, I received this. This is a word salad. Like all conversations so far, it's recycled from previous messages she sent. 29th of April. I haven't discovered any leads. Facebook told me that the locations of her page had been accessed from, but since her death, they're all places I can't account for. My home, my work, her mom's house, etc. My response wasn't response here wasn't bait. Yo, ask Nathan, was it an in-joke or lame explanation? But seeing her say it again was absolutely fucking crippling me. My reaction in the real life, was much less prettier. I'm not expecting my bond back. Her last few messages had started to scare me, but I wouldn't admit it at this point. 8th of May. I don't really have the words for this. Freezing is the first original words she's made. This has given me nightmares. The only started to kick in recently. I kept dreaming that she's ice cold car, frozen blue and gray, and I'm standing outside with the warmth, screaming at her to open the door. She doesn't even realize I'm there. Sometimes her legs are outside with me. 24th of May. I wasn't actually drunk. She wasn't an affectionate girl, and it was always embarrassing to her exchange I love yous, cuddle, talk about how much we went each other. She was more comfortable with it. When I was boozed up, I got fake drunk a lot. Her reply is what prompted me to finally memorialize her page, thinking it might help curb this behavior. It might seem incoherent or inconsistent compared to her previous message. It's pasted from an old conversation where I was trying to convince her to let me drive her home from a friend's. In the collision, the dashboard had crushed her. She was severed in a diagonal line from her right hip to midway down her thigh. One of her legs found tucked under the back seat. Going back in time, the 7th of August, 2012. There are logs from the day she died. She was usually home from work by 4:30. This, alongside a couple of voicemail messages, is the last time I talked to her, under assumption she was alive. You'll see why I'm showing these soon. Yesterday, 1st of July, 2014. I memorialized her page a couple of days after I received a message about walking. Until today, she's been quiet. She wasn't even tagging herself in my photos. I don't know what to do anymore. Do I kill her memorial page? What if it's her? I want to puke. I don't want to know what's happening. I just heard Facebook alert. I'm too afraid to swap windows and check. That ends the story of my dead girlfriend keeps messaging me. Let's see. How long is this one? This one's kind of a little bit of a long one. Since we're an artist, since we do drawing, let's do a story called Draw a Person. And this will be the last story for the night. And we'll do some more of these stories probably while we do the Halloween art piece on Saturday. So this will be the last story for the evening. I'm just going to take a sip of my drink. Draw a person. I had my first panic attack when I was 13 years old. To say it was a terrifying experience would be an understatement. For brief, fleeting 7 minutes of my life, the world around me dissolved into trembling, dissociative mess. My heart nearly cracked from my chest plate. My limbs shuddered and contorted. My eyes fogged and burned. My mouth turned to sandpaper. My lungs ripped away from my throat. I knew I was going to die. I knew I was going to die in the middle of my freshman English class. I knew I was going to die all because I forgot to print out my essay. I knew I was going to die because my parents were going to kill me. I knew I was going to die because everyone in the class knew that I was going insane. At some point, all recollection of this event goes blank. Picks up an hour later on the exam table in the nurse's office. While I survived with all limbs intact, only a few kids thought I was crazy. My parents killed me with their kindness. Of course, parents were worried. They had every right to be, but enrolling me in 10 different appointments with 10 different therapists around town seemed a bit melodramatic. To be fair, my first panic attack was long overdue. For as long as I can remember, I was needlessly anxious person. I stressed over every detail, every facet of life, no matter how insignificant or pointless. Most of these sessions were identical in structure and similar in their pointlessness. Tell me about yourself, Connor. What happened before the panic attack? Connor, what did your panic attack feel like? Have you had a panic attack before? But one session in particular stood out to me. When I sat down in front of the last therapist, she didn't bombard me with icebreakers and questions about mental stability. She simply handed me a piece of paper and a pencil. Draw me a person, she said. You can draw however you like it. Being my final assessment appointments, and being annoyed beyond belief, I decided to have a little fun with it. My person, if you could call it a person, raised the eyebrow of my therapist as she scribbled down notes. It was someone bound in bodily straitjacket, its limbs and features contorted into masses of crumpled cloth. Its head was hidden behind a mast of restraints. I was pleased with my work. I'm not sure if the therapist was. Currently, 5 years later, my anxiety now well under my control, medication and learning to reverse the catastrophic thinking has made a world of difference. College has been great so far, as well. I've adjusted decently, and thanks to the rare single room in an overcrowded freshman dorm hall, I've had my own space to unwind at the end of the day. However, something is beginning to go wrong. Horribly wrong. 5 years later, I'm seeing that drawing again, but it's not on paper anymore. It first started a couple weeks ago. It was late and 8 a.m. Monday lecture. As usual, I had to sprint across the campus and make it to at least the last half of it. Apparently, everyone else was operating on the same schedule as I. When I ran into the academic hall where my lecture had been held, I missed the elevator to the fourth floor. Not that being on time would have made any difference, the elevator easily exceeded its weight capacity. I first saw it when the elevator doors slid closed. It didn't hit me what I had seen until I finally made it to my lecture a few minutes later, but then it did. Wasn't sure if I had seen what I had seen was real. My drawing was lurching behind the crowd of anxious students. The only part of it I could see was its head. It's wrapped in cloth. It was shaking uncontrollably. As my professor's lecture drifted into one ear and out the other, I shook the event off as nothing more than a jumbled nerves. It had already been a taxing day after all. But then I saw it again. On Friday, that same week. A friend and I had just sat down in the final lecture of the week. As per usual, we sat in the very back of the auditorium, as to make a quick escape when the class was over. About 20 minutes into the lecture, I heard something coming from behind the auditorium doors. It was coming from the entrance hallway. It sounded like scraping metal. It was quiet and almost unnoticeable at first, but then it grew louder and louder. The sound became so deafening that I could no longer hear the professor. As I pinned my fingers to my ears, I glanced around the lecture hall. People were still taking notes. The professor was still talking. My friend was frantically trying to keep the pace with the presentation. No one noticed the sound. No one heard what I was hearing. My eardrums were on verge of bursting. I gritted my teeth to hold back cries of pain. The noise stopped. I pulled my hands away from my ears. The professor was still discussing 19th century politics. My friend shook his writing hand in pain. My face with bewilderment, or flared with bewilderment. Did any of that really happen? Was I going crazy? The hairs on my back of my neck stood up. My head jerked to the door nearest me. It was standing on the other side of the door. I could see it through the tiny window. It was twitching, its locks and restraints clamoring against its jacket. I bit into the sides of my cheek. The instinct to scream was rising up in my throat like vomit. It immediately turned me. I jolted in my seat. I knew I was there. My friend poked me in the shoulder with his pencil. "Are you all right?" he asked. "Do you see it?" I replied. My friend peered at the door for a brief second. The locks were still jingling. "No," he frowned. "What are you talking about?" My heart sank. He couldn't see it. "Nothing," I said. A few minutes later, it disappeared. That was when I started to see it everywhere. In the days following that Friday, I was certain my sanity was slipping away from me. I was seeing the drawing everywhere. I could hear it wherever I went. I was being stalked. I could hear the ankle braces grinding against the sidewalk behind me as I'd walk to and from class. But whenever I turned around, I could only catch a fleeting glimpse of it. Something that would slide into a doorway. Other times it would disappear behind a mass of students. But I knew it was always there. It was getting closer. Every day I could hear it more clearly. I could tell if any of it was real, or if my brain was boiling inside my head. My friends were beginning to catch on to it as well. When I'd leave class with my friends, I'd go and grab dinner with people from my floor. I'd find myself running. It was entirely on instinct. My body was yanking me away from certain danger. It earned me a lot of weird looks. I tried my best to brush it off as a joke, but I know that no one ever brought it. It became so bad that I scheduled an appointment with the campus therapist. But as I never went to it, because last Thursday, it revealed itself to me for the first time. I was walking through the campus green on my way to the cafeteria to grab some breakfast before class. As if on cue, I heard the same sound that I had been hearing all week. I rubbed my eyes. I was groaning, exhausted. I wasn't sure how much more of this I could take. I stopped and turned around. For whatever reason, in the second I was turning around, some vague desire bubbled up from deep inside my mind. I wanted to see it. Face to face. I was sick of running. It was standing about 20 feet behind me, in plain sight. I froze. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. One of its arms was coming loose from its restraints on its back. Its arm sagged free and flailed limply to its side. I gagged. A revolting stench was emanating from a new tear along the left side of the straitjacket. It was acidic and ripe. After dozens of seconds of my eyes and my nose from the odor, I saw something from behind rip the edges of the cloth. A face. There was a face where one shouldn't have been. It was sideways and stuck onto the torso of the thing. Its flesh was cracked and dripping. It began to back away in horror. Other students walked by undisturbed. They couldn't see it. I was alone. Its eyes snapped open and locked onto me. Its lips curled into a smile. "It's your turn, Connor," it spoke. "You're up next." The voice was gelatinous and abysmal. As I took another step, the thing raced towards me. I ran as fast as I could, pushing students out of the way and racing through the buildings. It was gaining on me, closer and closer. I could hear the restraints bursting and giving away. I needed to get back to my room. I couldn't let the thing get me. "It's your turn, Connor," it called out. I turned around and catch a glimpse of it as I neared my dorm. The straitjacket was falling apart, and there were more faces, dozens of them, all of them staring at me. "You're next," they screamed in unison. I made it into the building. The elevator doors closed as it reached out to grab me. The eyes were bulging with excitement. The mouths were gaping in anticipation. Slammed against the metal doors, and I ascended away from death. It began to laugh. Hundreds of voices began to laugh at once. It grew louder and louder. I collapsed into the corner of the elevator, grasping my ears and screaming in pain. "You're next, Connor," the voices howled, laughing becoming worse when I reached my floor. My vision began to blur. I could feel the blood trickling from my ears. I stumbled into my door, and began to fumble for my key into the lock. My vision was going black. I could hear the locks and restraints clanking. It was coming upstairs. The key made its way into the lock, and I swung the door open and slammed it shut. I locked the door, and the laugh stopped. My vision slowly returned. I gazed down at my hands. They were covered in blood. I slid down the door and sat against it. Tears almost immediately. And before I knew it, I was crying harder than I had in a long time. I never felt so alone. I had no way of knowing it, if any of this was actually happening. And if I had no one to reach out to, no one to listen who would listen. I remained locked in my room throughout the weekend. I left for nothing, and I never answered any phone calls or text messages. I didn't want to let people know that I was hiding. I couldn't let them know why I was hiding. My friend from the lecture had texted me half a dozen times when I didn't show up for class last Friday. Another half a dozen times when I didn't respond. I was too afraid to answer them because the thing was right at my door, outside my door. All weekend long, it knocked at my door. "Connor," the voices called out. "Are you in there, Connor?" All weekend long. All I could see its fingertips slide under my door as it tried to enter my room. "You can't stay away forever," it would say. All weekend long, I would fear the flailing restraints against my door. "Remember, Connor," it laughed. "You're next." All weekend long, I could hear people giggling run up and down the hallways while the thing tapped at my door. I tried my best to ignore it. I had to keep telling myself it wasn't real, that I was going insane after all, until my friend came to my room. That was the only thing that got me through the weekend. On Monday, I was pulled out of a deep sleep by the sound of something profounding against my door. Last time I had slept was Friday night. My body wasn't about to go another day without shut-eye. At first I thought it was the thing trying to get in. Tough luck. I got up and gazed through the peephole. It was my friend from the lecture hall. "Let me in, Connor," he said. "You're scaring the shit out of me." I obliged. A wave of relief washed over me. I didn't feel quite so alone anymore. "Jesus Christ," he said as he walked in. "What happened?" I knew my room was a mess, but it didn't hit me how bad it really was until he walked in. When you're fighting to maintain your sanity, neatness comes second. "I need to talk to you," I said. "It's bad." "Of course," he replied. "What?" His words trailed off from him. His eyes were glued on something on my bed. What was it? I flinched. "Dude, what the hell is that thing?" he asked. I didn't notice when I first woke up. The straitjacket had been neatly folded and placed at the foot of my bed while I slept. So ends Draw a Person. I hope you guys enjoyed these 3 stories. I tried to pick some interesting ones that are a bit different on each. I think our last one is probably more appropriate for Halloween. Second one kind of did, but I mean, it wasn't too much of a story that got too much going. But we'll definitely tell a few more stories or do something on Saturday stream while we do the drawing stream. And we will be back next week with our next story stream where we're going to be doing, we'll finally be breaking into 11 Kingdoms. So we'll be breaking into the novel I wrote back in 2013. It's a science fiction novel. We will be hitting chapters 0 and chapter 1. So it'll probably be a pretty long stream because the chapters of 11 Kingdoms are kind of long. 0 is the shortest of them all, which is only about a page. But the others are about 20 pages long. So I hope you all enjoyed this. It was a nice little fun Halloween thing. If you want to see more of these kind of stories, let me know. If you have your own story ideas or own stories that you'd like to be read on the series, as always, leave a comment, subscribe, like, all the fun messages. Make a suggestion for stories that we can share in the future. I'll be happy to tell more stories if you want to hear more creepy stories. If you want to hear some other stories that people have written, let me know, as always. And for the final bit tonight, I want to thank you all for joining in, and I hope you have a wonderful Halloween. Good night.